You'll hear music. That's a 60-second notice. We're going to take a break, but we go out and immediately come back. Okay, cool.
Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where we continue the mission of highlighting veterans and service organizations who continue to serve our community and our nation. We're brought to you by Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Don't worry, retire happy. Welcome aboard. Hey, I got to tell you, we've got a really, really great day going. This is just tremendous. Here we are in June, the summertime. It's getting hot.
Yep.
It's getting ready to go. I'm telling you, I am so fired up. It's unbelievable.
And we are coming to you from the ready room of the USS Midway.
That was a beautiful ship, man.
It still is. It is a floating museum in San Diego Harbor right now. And it is actually one of the ships that I can claim a landing on.
Yeah?
Indeed.
Yeah.
I landed on the Midway back in the day.
Well, let's see. Mine were on the Oriskany and the Hancock and then the Truman.
Hey, good morning, Joe.
So I would like to say a very special thank you to Navy League and all that they did, and we enjoyed that last week so much. If you'd like to go back and take a look, we had a great program.
It was a lot of fun.
It was.
And there were stars. I thought it was in the middle of the night. There were so many stars in the room.
I think one of the things that was the first time with this team we've done a live remote.
Right.
And it was so successful. So I want to throw this out. If you're a veteran service organization and you're in our part of the world or anywhere, you want to talk about having a live remote come to promote what's going on, I think that's something we'd love to do.
Sure.
And,
absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm all in.
And I'll talk about next week. The plan is to have Marine veteran, which will be appropriate in Women's Veterans Day
Absolutely.
month. Yeah, just too many letters there. And that's Maggie Crowfield, and she is with the Veteran Film Institute. And let me tell you, they are doing some fantastic work. And since I've got a second or two here, I will tell a story that she invited my wife and I. And they had the red carpet runway and people doing interviews, and it was really cool that we got to be part of. But we're watching a film from another Marine veteran had happened to shoot this film. Oh, here we go. We'll let me finish the story real fast. But basically, he was interviewing W. Bush in the Oval Office that they have down at the W Library.
Oh,
you can actually sit in, and Richard asked W about all the work he does for vets, and he says, "Man, I want to spend the rest of my life serving veterans." And I leaned over to my wife in the theater and I said, "That SOB stole my line." So without any further ado and any bad stories from me, it is a great pleasure to welcome to the show retired Marine Major and honestly has become a good friend of mine, Scott Heusing. Scott, good morning.
Morning, gentlemen.
Scott, welcome aboard, buddy.
Look at that. Look at that beard. That beard has become magnificent.
I
like that. That is well trimmed. It's looking good.
He even looks like a Marine, you know? I got to tell you, Scott, man, you started this great organization and you're getting ready to do something really, really enjoyable, the ride. So
ride.
Yeah, Chuck.
I'm going to throw it over to Scott. And I listened to one of your interviews on the website, but talk about the ride, the purpose of the ride. You're getting ready to start this, and then we'll talk about all the places that people can come out and meet you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me on the show with you guys. And I'm sure it's not lost on Jim either, but two things you never hear from Chuck, right? Let me tell this story real quick.
Oh, no. Okay. Cut.
You know him well.
Yeah, too well.
I do. Yes, I do. We've known each other for probably coming up on 6 years now. So it's been a great friendship and brotherhood in the Marines. But we at Save the Brave started 8 years ago doing what we do to connect veterans in a safe space. And like a lot of things in the veteran space, it was born out of some tragedy. And I got a phone call, lost another Marine or Navy buddy of mine, and it was at the height of COVID. No airfares to grab, and I was asked to speak at a eulogy in South Carolina. So I said, man, I'm just going to hop on my Harley and ride across the country. And there was no other reason behind it other than a mode of transportation. And as I traversed the country, my good friend Pete Turner said, hey, I don't want you to go on the road alone. And he dropped everything he did for 16 days and followed me in his pickup truck. Well, we hit every city along the way, and we'd rinse and repeat each day for the ride. And it just kind of became this Forrest Gump-like event where people started coming out on the road with us. And every time we rolled into another town, we had police and fire escorts. It just kind of grew organically. And my partner, Nick Velez, the president of Save the Brave, was so great at social media, and our marketing manager, it just kind of blew up. And it was really that first year, guys, the ride showed me one thing, and it was exposing the best of the human condition as I was out on the road riding, meeting thousands of great Americans at every stop. And when I rolled into your town in Dallas, Fort Worth, one of my Marines who I wrote about in Echo and Ramadi was a firefighter. And I tell you what, there's nothing like the support you get in Texas when we roll through. It's the biggest state, obviously, we go through. And there was probably 200 riders lined up at American Eagle Harley in Corinth. And then we pushed over to Bartonville and ran a bunch of red lights through town for about 45 minutes with Lake City Fire and Argyle Fire and Denton County Sheriffs. And it was just amazing to see the type of support that came out for this ride. And those in the military will understand that one of our most powerful tools to motivate people is shame. So everybody on the ride and the Marines the next year, they said, hey, sir, you're going to do this ride again? I said, nope, not going to do it. It was, triple digit heat as we rode through that southern route. And it was not a real, easy ride. It's a very physical ride because we do it in July, and this will be our 4th year as we launch the ride again on July 18th from Temecula, California, and then do 9 cities in 9 days, all the way to Savannah, Georgia. And we'll be back through Texas. And people often ask me when they come out and ride or when they come out and support, and they ask, why do you pick July to do this ride? And I say, oh, I didn't pick the month. The month picked me. So it's become a metaphor, I guess, to really show everybody that, that there are people that are dealing with things in life that are a lot more difficult and a lot more stressful than hopping on your Harley and riding across the country, meeting thousands of great Americans and supporters and everything we do to try and prevent veteran suicide. But this year during the ride, one of the themes that we're really going to be talking about is not all the darkness. It's about the light. It's about the great things our veteran communities are doing, the amazing accomplishments of veterans when they transition from active duty into the private sector and they become businessmen and writers and entrepreneurs and radio personalities in some cases. And I think that's important because we really have to start talking about the great benefits of military service and the great things that can happen to you and your families when you transition out of the military, because there's so many success stories out there. And I'm very intimately familiar with a lot of the problems going on in active duty. And I think that people in the veteran nonprofit space, people in the veteran space have a real responsibility to start talking about all the great things we're doing, because there is a very direct and indirect impact on our military recruiting establishment. So as veterans, we could either sit around and talk about the problems all day in the VFW or American Legions or in our local pub, but if you're not out doing something about the problem and showing the greatness, I think that we're going to have a compounding problem with our military recruiting and retention issues. So as we ride across the country again here in another 30 days, that's going to be one of our themes. And we want to bring as many people out to join us. When we're in Texas, we roll through El Paso, Odessa, Bartonville, and Houston. And there's information on our website. Go to savethebrave.org, click on the events, Ride for the Brave, and you can find out and follow us the whole time while we're out there on the road. That's a great picture right there. That's in Texas at American Eagle Harley.
Right, yeah, I was going to say I recognize the location, and I swear to God I didn't set Scott up to talk about that, but very much the motto of the show is Charlie Mike, which is continue the mission, and that is our mission here, is to highlight all of these incredible stories. And we've had Scott on before, and when you rewatch this one, you will see that we have thanks to Nathaniel Smith, our producer, and Diane Blythe, who keeps us on task and organized, we have dramatically increased the technical part of the show. It's easier to watch. It looks a lot better.
And it's a lot more fun giving you a hard time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, I think, everybody's job in life.
Let's go back to what Scott was talking about, though, of leadership. Mm-hmm. Scott, you started off as an enlisted man, and then you tell us how you became an officer. Because one of the things I have seen is the tremendous leadership that military veterans offer in business today, in companies today. I have so many companies that approach me and say, Jim, we would really like to hire veterans. And so we try and connect them and help them to get into these positions where they can really lead and help a company out. So tell us, how did you make that transition from enlisted to officer? And what inspired you?
Well, I enlisted in the deployed entry program in December of '88, and then I went to boot camp in April of '89. 4 years, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and then understood the value of an education. And I hung up my rifle, and I was a machine gunner, and then I was, luckily there was a weapons company in my hometown in Illinois. So I stayed in the reserves throughout college, and starting out, man, I wasn't a real rock star academically. I barely squeaked out of high school with a smoking hot 1.24 GPA, and luckily the Marines also saw a little potential in me, and that set me up for success in college. And I graduated in 3 years, and I share that because it really is a testament to the discipline you get when you join the military in any branch of the services. But college was a good fit for me. I did very well. I had a much better GPA getting out of college. And again, sergeants, they make the Marine Corps go around, our non-commissioned officers. And I got a phone call from this guy, Sergeant Connor, and he found my package for officer candidate school and got me a boat seat. And honestly, I was slated to go work for the federal government. I thought that was my next line of service, but I really wanted to give back to the Marines for everything they'd given me. And the rest is history. I shipped that January, and I never looked back. And then some 15 years later, that's really what thrust me into, the story I wrote about Necro and Ramadi as a company commander of over 250 Marines, soldiers, and sailors in Iraq's deadliest city. But I think that the leadership you gain at every level really translates into any type of vocation in the private sector. It just does.
It's kind of like working out. The tougher job you take, the stronger you get. And the military gives you the opportunity and the flexibility to really have some challenges. And that's going to make you a lot stronger. And I think a lot of people don't, they want to shy away. They want comfort. They want ease. Military is not comfort and ease. Military is accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things that I want to dove is something you just said, and I was really struck by it. You talked about discipline, but we tend to think of discipline as the discipline of Arlie Ermy as a drill instructor, and you learn this instinctive, immediate discipline to answer orders. But it goes so far beyond that. You were talking about the discipline that you developed within yourself, and look at how you applied it to education and finishing your degree in 3 years.
I like it that you guys just said one word, discipline, because I really don't believe in self-discipline. There's either discipline or you're undisciplined. And I think when you transition out of the military, it depends on what organization you're in. At the height of my career or at the end of my career, I was responsible for over 2,500 Marines and sailors, and on deployment from amphibious shipping, and that's a pretty big responsibility. But you have a great team surrounding you, making you effective, making you look good in your job if you're doing the right things. But now leading myself and even a smaller team at Save the Brave, sometimes that's more challenging, is really getting a smaller group to do those things, especially when you've got a bunch of alpha dogs all in the same pack. Sometimes that's own leadership challenges, but all of those things we learn along the way, I think I'll never lose those throughout my life. I carry those to the till the day I die. And I think that's one of the things I'm very fortunate to have is a something that's ingrained in me, is the capacity to continue to lead. And I'm not saying everybody has to do that. Not everybody has to start a nonprofit or write a book or do what you're great at. And I think that's where the real success comes. And that's what I've been very lucky to do, is have the capacity to not only share my story, but continue to serve other Marines.
Let me throw this out. We've used the word discipline. How about the word dedication? I see in everything, as well as on your website, the word dedication. And when you're dedicated, you don't have to be disciplined like we think of a drill sergeant. You are motivated. And I got to tell you, I relate to you, because after the Navy, I went back to college. I got my degree in 3 years. And trust me, my GPA was a lot higher. And I think that's important. It changes you. It gives you dedication. It gives you purpose, gives you direction. This is the Veterans Impact Show, and we're going to be right back with Scott Huesing in just a second. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. Hey, Chuck, we're talking with a great Marine. Man, I love being surrounded by Marines. I know I'm safe, especially when I got an extra $20 to buy the beer.
There you go.
All right, and dedication. We're talking about dedication, Scott, and you really made some great points about that with your ride. In talking about your ride, that's dedication. You're going to be riding basically across the nation, from Temecula, California to Savannah, Georgia. How fun is that? Plus, you're going to get a little hot and sunburned.
Yeah, it is a physical ride, and aside from doing it in the month of July, and we do travel over 3,100 miles, and it's triple digit heat when we hit Arizona through Tucson, and even getting down to Texas in Houston was pretty balmy. But despite the physical conditions and fact that I do choose to do it in July, I still get a lot of grief too, because my bike that I ride on has no windshield. It's a 2007 Road King, and every time I hit Corinth, Texas at American Eagle, the team down there tries to upsell me to a new bike that has a little more creature comforts on it. But when I hit that age where it's too challenging for me, maybe I'll upgrade. Maybe I'll hand the baton over to a younger Marine to do it in my place. But it's a great ride. And again, we hit every town, and from I'll just use Odessa. We hit Odessa, and it's a smaller turnout. It's one of the smaller turnouts, but it's also one of those days where the American Legion hosts us and they feed us, and they do a small fundraiser there. And it's just kind of feels really heartwarming when we roll in there. And the next day I get up, and that ride east into Dallas-Fort Worth it's a good ride. Last year, it was the only leg of the ride where I rode alone, and it was kind of by design, so I could personally focus on what I do. And by the time I hit, Corinth there at the American Eagle Harley, it's overwhelming. And then Chuck's been there just about, I think, every year since I've done this ride. And when we get to Marty B's place in Bartonville, it is nuts. I could barely get my helmet off before I'm greeted by, the hundreds of thousands of people that that show up for the ride. So
if you have never been backstage to a rock and roll concert and seen the way the rock stars are swarmed, this is the treatment that Scott gets when he shows up at most. It's just absolutely amazing. And he's seen me. I just hang in the back. It's just like, man, you're the star. Go take all the adulation. But I wanted to talk a little bit and kind of wrap up talking about the ride so we can slide over to Save the Brave, because you've already created a couple of questions that I hadn't thought about asking. But we've got the website up. It's savethebrave.org. Go to events and go to Ride for the Brave. You can see the list of cities. I wanted to let everybody know you are welcome to come out to the location where Scott is going to wind up. For you guys who love to ride, and you see the picture up there of just a bunch of, I think this is the Combat Motorcycle Veterans Group. I'm not exactly sure, as I don't ride. I used to in college, but not anymore. But you are welcome to come out. You're welcome to do part of the ride. It's really cool. He's got his own RV. And by the way, I'm making a little bit of headway with Red Bull. We'll see how it goes. Even if I just can get you a couple of cases, I'm doing my best.
I'll take them.
But we want everybody to know everybody is welcome. And these turn into really fun events. And it is amazing what happens. And we've talked about this before. I swear to God, veterans can smell each other. You put a bunch of people together in a room, and you're going to look over in about 15, 20 minutes, and there's going to be a group huddled, and you're going to go over to that little huddle, and you're going to find out that everybody there is a veteran. And the Marines are even worse about it. And it is a different feel. And we want to, and this is one of the places I wanted to go, and I wanted to get your thoughts on, how do we as veterans share that feeling of camaraderie? And as we start talking about Save the Brave, I want to talk about how your leadership skills and working with both civilians and veterans, because it takes a little bit, but talk about that. Talk about how you've seen veterans impact the civilian community.
One of the great things about the events and the ride, which is, the closest alligator to the boat, and just whoever is watching the show, veterans, those in the communities, if you go to that link and you click the fundraise tab, there's an opportunity where you can join the teams. You don't have to necessarily donate. You can share it, but there's a Team Dallas. You can sign up. If you ride, if you're one of the riders, go to the fundraise tab, join one of the teams. And Eric Hicks, who's a Dallas outreach coordinator for us, he's the team lead. So you can go right to that page right there that you're seeing on your screen, and you can join a team right in your local area. There's an El Paso team, there's an Odessa, Dallas, Fort Worth, and then there's a Houston team. And we're going to have so much support this year. It's really, really pretty cool. So that's how you can join a team and become involved. For the veteran communities, I tell everybody the first step is just show up. And I think that that's what we've done at Save the Brave so well, is we focus, we're dedicated to the veterans and the families we serve. We stay focused because we're great at what we're great at, and we connect veterans, and we do it in a way that, again, brings out the best in people. But the biggest challenge is just show up, and you have to make time to do that. Just like when you're on active duty, we allocate and apportion time in our daily schedules to train for certain things. Now in the nonprofit space, and what we do at savethebrave.org is we make time to create opportunities for veterans where we can draw them in. And I'll tell you, we cannot do it without the support of our local communities. And Dallas Fort Worth is such a prime example. At Marty B's place, that guy bends over backwards, and Tansy Turner and his whole staff, Matt Diddy, they welcome us in like family. And I think that people see that, and they want to be inspired by that, and they share that story. So that's how we connect them.
And you're going to be, is it July 21st? You're going to be in Dallas?
Yes, sir. Friday.
We say July Dallas. It's really DFW, because where Marty B's is kind of in the center of everything.
That's up north in Bartonville.
Yeah, up in Bartonville. I was told the other day,
fun place.
Technically, it's Azle, but who knows?
Hey,
I don't know where all
North
the little
Texas.
lines go.
And Scott, do you realize too that the state of Texas is number 2 only to California, and we're about to pass California.
Number
in
1,
the
we've
number of
already
veterans.
passed them.
Oh, we
Take
have?
that,
All
California.
right, we'll be right back. Veterans Impact for you.
Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. And thanks
Number
to
1.
our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation.
Hey, Chuck, I didn't know that we passed California.
Yep.
That's great.
According
We're
to the
number 1.
latest numbers from the VA,
Wow.
Texas is now number 1 for veterans, which may explain why Scott Heusing is looking at a move east. Maybe. Possibly.
Yeah. Hey,
we're
man,
looking. We're hoping.
Let me tell you, we would love to have you here. And here's the other thing. See, you have to travel all the way across America, which is great. But if you lived here in Dallas, Fort Worth, you could only have to go halfway.
That's additional incentive for sure. And
there we go.
And let me tell you, you don't have to go through the Mojave unless you choose to. Let me tell you.
Hey, Scott, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, and let's take a minute and talk about, we keep talking about the organization Save the Brave. We talked about how the ride gets started. Talk about how you created Save the Brave, and then I want to drill into your leadership style.
Well, we started Save the Brave again when we lost one of my squad leaders, Simon Litke, who committed suicide. We flew a bunch of the Marines up to Minnesota. Nick Velez was instrumental in that, and he asked me to be a part of it and come on as the executive director. And Nick and I had served together in Ramadi. He was one of my young machine gunners in a very deadly place back in 2006 and 2007. And when we did that, we could see that bringing people together and connecting those in our company, those that knew Simon, is a pretty powerful thing. And when we got back, Nick said, "Hey, sir, I want to do more." And he put everything together. He started it, and we've been driving ever since. And he said, "Well, we want to take some guys offshore fishing." I said, "Well, that sounds cool. And I don't know how to bait a hook." And we got 20 vets together and took them on the boat. And it was really something pretty powerful. And the guys were great at it. And that was 8 years ago this July. And last year we did 32 fishing trips in California, Texas, Mexico. And we are planning on 20 trips this year. We've got 60 veterans lined up. And not only the fishing program, but we've grown to also have a jiu-jitsu program here in California, which is spreading like wildfire. And one of the things we're very proud of is our scholarship program that is dedicated solely to the children and deserving family members of veterans who committed suicide. And last year, we presented our first $10,000 scholarship to one individual here in California. But it's open nationally to everybody that's qualified. And we're going to continue to grow. We're going to grow at the right rate, and we're going to continue to help the right people for the right reasons. And we understand that out of 45,000 veteran nonprofits registered with the IRS, out of 1 million, we're just one organization doing their small part to try and help and make an impact in veterans' lives. And I love that is the title of this show. The impact. It's very important because you could go your whole life and never see that impact you're making. But if you're out there doing things to help other people at the beginning and the end of every day, I think that that's a good plan for success.
Hey, Scott, how do you sign up? Because, man, you hit a nerve with me. I love offshore fishing. I used to go offshore fishing with my brother-in-law all the time out of Bridge Harbor Marina and out of Port Aransas. How do I get signed up to do that? Because I'm going to be the 61st guy to join you guys.
Well, we'll take you. And it's very easy. You just go to the offshore fishing program on our programs tab at savethebrave.org. And you fill out the intake form. We've got an amazing intake coordinator who goes through everyone's qualifications. You submit some documents, and that's it. We make it as simple and as fun for everybody to do that. And I think that's part of my leadership style now and commander's guidance to the team is, hey, let's make everything fun and let's make it cool. Let's make it a great event and a great program for everybody, because I think we all know even the Marine Corps can make fun stuff unfun, like shooting down. We'll find a way to make that unfun. Like we'll make it as
But Scott,
as possible.
These kind of activities that bring guys together in a positive activity that you're doing things, and there are other organizations doing great things, that really helps bring people back and changes their attitude and changes their mindset. And I know Jim Dolan, who started Heroes on the Water, I'll never forget the guy who was so depressed, and his wife fought with him to get him to go, and he was laughing for the first time. She said he hadn't laughed in years, and now he'd caught a big catfish, and it was dragging him all over the lake.
Yeah, he literally was being dragged around the lake. He'd hooked this huge catfish, and I know her. That's Katie, and absolutely great story that they tell. They have since adopted 2 kids that they fostered. Just an incredible story. But he had been completely morose.
Oh, yeah.
And just a huge story. But it's one of the things that you talked about, Scott, was getting people engaged and having fun. And we were talking about having been at the Navy League National Convention for our last show, which was a lot of fun because I got my son to fly the F-35. It's not a simulator, it's a demonstrator. And I found out the difference is a simulator actually includes motion. So I've done full motion simulators, and yeah, they can make you seasick just like a boat on the ocean.
I got to talk to you, man. I know you talk so much about being a helicopter pilot and being seasick. Once I started flying, I never got airsick.
No, I never did in a helicopter. And it was just a weird thing. This isn't about me. It's about Scott. We go off on our weird flying tangents all the time. So what was it like as you got this started? Talk about some of the leadership challenges of bringing together veterans. And as you said, a lot of veterans are alpha dogs, and everybody wants to pull the boat in their direction. And you've got civilians that, by and large are intimidated by veterans. But the other thing is they're very dismissive of veterans a lot of the time. Talk about how you molded what is a really powerful veteran service organization now.
Well, the magic happens when we bring people together, when the communities can see the active duty and the veteran tribe that has defended this country, and also those veterans can meet the communities that have no clue about the service and sacrifice of our nation's finest young men and women, and the years that they dedicate to service. And I think getting those two different cultures together essentially is, again, that's where the magic happens, because a lot of people have their own perceptions of what people do in the military, and the military, it gets very insulated, and you think that when you transition out of the military, you're never going to find that type of camaraderie or brotherhood or sisterhood that we enjoy daily. But I tell you, the further I push myself out of those military circles and where my comfort level is, I think that's where I find the most success. And I love to share that with other veterans. And I speak across the country to so many different organizations, from private healthcare to insurance companies to corporate, collegiate, you name it. And every time I do that, I find that that's really where we get that engagement.
I'm going to try and bring Admiral Pat Walsh, who is now the president of Cristo Rey, which is a academy. It's a preparatory school for college in one of the poorest areas of Dallas. And I'm going to see if we can't organize bringing Admiral Walsh and a whole bunch of those young men and women. They are so amazing to meet people like you and meet veterans like you because of the inspiration. Those kids coming from one of the poorest areas of Dallas are achieving because of men like Pat Walsh, men like you, for them to look up to and say, man, I can do this. And I think that's great. I'm going to work on that.
Okay.
Yeah, get him out. I want to meet him, because those type of community leaders and engagement, especially with our youth, are essential. As we started talking at the beginning of the program about the importance of sharing that with, Gen Z. These young, 17-year-olds need to understand that when you sign up and you join the military, great things can happen. And, we need to get away from some of the other messaging that, doesn't shine a great light on what we do. No one who's 17 is going to join the military and, you know, say, hey, yeah, I'll get to serve 4 years and then live under a bridge. Like, that's not every veteran's story.
No,
That's
and that's one of the, and we've talked about this off the air in other places, and I've heard you speak about it, but I want to come back to a word that you just used, and it's interesting. We keep focusing in this show on specific words, but you talked about tribe, and with social media,
Mhm.
and let me set this up really quickly. We talk about social media, that we now have access to all the information in the known universe, and yet social media has made us less connected. Talk about the impact of tribe and the importance of tribe.
Well, we want to bring as many people in. And again, one of the challenges we have within our organization, and again, there's a steep learning curve, but running a nonprofit is just like running a business. You have to have a product that
Yep.
you want to sell or promote to people, and our product is connection. You know, that's what we're selling, and we want to bring people together, and we have to apply all of those leadership and business principles together to create that tribe. I think that's essential. And one of the other things too is we have to do it in a way where we always stay above reproach. We want to do things the right way. We want to do things ethically. We want to be creative. And I like it when we create these events, and it is by design. We want them to be a little bit physical, like our jiu-jitsu program or the fishing. Everything's outdoors. We're pulling people out, getting them a little bit out of their comfort zone, and really challenging them. Because as you were talking about, Jim, that is how you get better. It's through that friction and putting yourself in an uncomfortable position. And I try to do that every day of my life is one, read or educate myself on something, put myself in an uncomfortable position, challenge myself. And those tenets, I think, serve me well as I continue to, do that. And the last thing I do every day is I try and do something to help someone else. And I think through the whole nonprofit space, I think people, maybe even veterans especially, get a little bit shied away from that and what we do in the world of philanthropy and helping others. But man, I'll tell you what, since I spent 24 years in the Marine Corps, and we've got all of these leadership traits and principles and ethoses and bumper stickers, the essence of what we do, especially the Marines, is we help people that can't help themselves. And if you subscribe to that every single day, and you wake up and you understand that it's not a bumper sticker, you believe it, and you care about it, that's when you're really going to make an impact.
Wow.
You wound up leaving both of us a little bit speechless, but that really was, you hit as the old adage goes, you hit the nail on the head.
I'd like to throw out something to just a little bit of a change for a second. You mentioned very briefly early in the program your book. Can you tell us a little bit about the book and what inspired you and what is in that book? Because it's not a fiction book. It seems to be an autobiographical book. Is that correct? And it's a bestseller. You had a bestseller.
Yeah, it's still to this day, it's a bestseller, and we've been very fortunate. And I wrote this book not only to honor the service and sacrifice of the Marines and soldiers and families and interpreters that served under my command in 2006 and 7 in Ramadi, but I did it also to make sure that we captured a very important piece in history. And it is nonfiction, but it does read a bit like a novel, because although you see the cover there on the screen and you got this badass Marine who looks like he'll kick your door in the middle of the night, which we are trained to do, it's really a story about leadership and team building and overcoming adversity, and what we're enjoying today, this power of human connection. And I think that's what Marines love. That's what we enjoy. That's what those in the military love. And we wrote this book because it is an important piece of military history. And I never wanted that story and that fight in Ramadi to get swept under the shadows of other great battles during the recent war in Iraq and Afghanistan, because it was by definition one of the toughest and bloodiest fights that the Marines ever endured during that time. And really, not only for the Marine Corps, but for me personally, and the Marines who fought alongside of me, really defined what urban combat was: fighting daily, 5, 6, 7 times a day in direct contact with a very well-trained enemy force. Those were the challenges that these young men and women had to endure. They fought and they survived, and they took care of each other and me, honestly, better than anything I've ever experienced in my life.
I wanted to say this about the book, and I put this in the review that I wrote of it when I read it. This is one of the finest books on small unit leadership I have ever read. But it was really interesting. Friend of the show, Todd Boating, interviewed you recently here in Dallas, and it was an incredible interview because he really drilled into the human side of the book, and it actually has forced me, and I'm now going back and rereading it to pull more of that. And now I'm starting to understand why people will listen to authors being interviewed, because now I'm pulling even more out of the book. But it's absolutely incredible. Scott, I've got a quick question. Explain the significance of Echo, because Echo means something.
Well, it was a play on words, and I commanded Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, the Magnificent Bastards, and
Yep.
it also, is the echoes of war and those things that lingers. And honestly, when I created the title, it just really fell out of my head, and I had to fight a little bit with my editor at my publishing house, and they weren't too keen on it. They wanted to kind of glam it up a little bit, and I said, "No, this is the title. It's non-negotiable." And they said, "Well, Ramadi." They said, "People aren't going to understand what that word means."
Mm-hmm.
I says, "Take a beat," because there was a time in American history where the vast majority of Americans didn't understand words like Guadalcanal or Quezon or Iwo Jima, very foreign words, but they're important. So these battles in these foreign cities, thousands of miles away, don't get lost in history. I think that was important to me, and that's why we came up with the title, and it's done pretty good, almost to a fault, because I think I branded myself to the book, not thinking I'd write another one. And I walked into a command post one day, and the staff sergeant on duty says, "Hey, you're Echo and Ramadi." I says, "Well, it's Scott, but thanks."
Hey, you gonna make a movie out of it?
Hey, if someone wants to offer Michael Bay, if you're out there, give me a call.
Well, next week we're having a lady on who's a Marine that's in the film business, and I think maybe we could connect the two. Is that possible?
We could, or we could get my friend David Salzberg, who is part of Valor Productions. I don't know if you know him. I'll connect you. He's in L.A.
Well, let's do that. I tell you what, this has been a fantastic conversation that I have really enjoyed. We're going to be coming back talking with Scott Heusing, the author of Echo and Ramadi, a nonfiction book, a great book. We want you to do it, and then come join the ride. This Veterans Impact. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. Hey, Chuck, you brought a great friend of yours and a great guest today with Scott Heusing.
Did you notice the way I cut off him telling any stories about me?
Dodged the bullet there. Yeah, I mean, it could hurt a whole lot.
Yeah, it could. Scott, let's take about 2 minutes, wrap up talking about the ride. Any kind of saved rounds you've got as we go into our last kind of short segment here. And bear with us a little bit as we're working with a new extended segment, part of our new DBTV contract or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're on, by the way, because we're worldwide now, and to have a great looking guy like you with us, I mean, we're good for radio, but man, you'd make a great movie star.
There we go. It's time to get the gingers out there in front of the world.
Not sure if that's in the cards, but again, I do hypocritical. I always say, be great at what you're great at. And yeah, so, but I'm excited as we're just about at the 30-day mark where we're going to kick off back to California and again, 9 days in 9 cities, and through a lot of the people that I've met along the way, one of the new towns this year that we're going to finish at is in Savannah, Georgia, and it's at Baker McCullough Funeral Home. And I know that sounds a little contradictory, but
Whoa.
one of the organizations that I have spoken to over the past several years is the International Cemetery, Crematorium, and Funeral Home Association. I tell you what, that's an amazing group of individuals that has gone above and beyond to help us. And when I ran into them in Kansas last month, they said, "Hey, you need help in Savannah?" I said, "Look, I just threw a dart in the map and I wanted to pick Savannah." And said, "Well, we got you." And so they're creating this huge event with probably 1,000 people showing up in Savannah, Georgia. But as we roll across, this is what has happened over the past 4 years.
Ride website. Oh, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we've got all of these community leaders and team leaders in every city. But when we hit El Paso, Odessa, and Dallas Fort Worth, I always use Dallas Fort Worth as the example of what right looks like, because we have so many people down there. And again, it is one of the reasons why Chuck wasn't off topic. I am looking to make the leap down to Texas by invitation, so there's no Texans think I'm infiltrating from California. And I've been looking at it because I love the culture down in Texas, and I've got so many thousands of friends and supporters and business down there in Texas. It just seems like such a great fit and a new adventure for me. But the ride this year, please go online, check out everything we do at SaveTheBird.org. But this is our big event coming up in July, the 18th through the 26th. We will be in Dallas on Friday the 21st at Marty B's place in Bartonville. It's amazing. There'll be live music. There'll be merchandise. There'll be some celebrities that'll show up. And it's just a great night. On a Friday night, you guys aren't working the next day. Get out, have some fun. We usually roll in about 5 to 6 p.m., depending on the ride as we push down from Odessa. But get out, share the word, go to the link, sign up for the team, create a fundraiser, and support, because we cannot do this without the local support and your engagement. So I appreciate that. And thanks for having me on the show today, guys.
Take 60 seconds. Give us your last thoughts, whatever you want to share. There's too many. I've got a dozen questions that I've come up with since we started the show. So I'm not even going to try to go to those.
I just want to say thanks. Our connection, Chuck, is unique because we talk about information management and social media and the applications we use it for, but that's how we met. Mm-hmm. And, we were texting each other on LinkedIn, and I said, man, let's just pick up the phone and talk like a couple of Marines. And then come to find out Chuck's brother, Donnie, was my faculty advisor when I was a young captain out in Quantico, Virginia, and he's about to retire from the Marines now. And it's just a small world, and I'm very grateful for that. It's never lost on me the importance of friendships and how we cultivate those relationships. And I mean, it's tough to do. And when people pick up the phone and call you in this day and age, I think that's when you find out who your real friends are, especially or those that ask you to help them move. But
that's the true test of friendship. I got to tell this story real fast.
We haven't got time. One of the things I'm going to say is, Scott, when you move to Texas, you got plenty of guys here that'll help you come move, buddy.
All right.
And Jim and I aren't two of them.
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask because I'm not shy.
There we go.
All right. Let's wrap this up with a quick prayer and just say, dear God in heaven, we want to thank you very much for men like Scott Heusing and who continue the mission with all of our veterans around the world and doing all they do. And we say thank you for the hedge of protection around our active duty military and our first responders who run into the fire instead of running away. Thank you, God, for the protection. Thank you for all you do for us. Thank you, God, again, for veterans like Scott Heusing. This we pray and say thank you in your holy name. Amen.
It's been a lot of fun. The story I was going to tell was we got on the phone, and God, you talk about sounding like a couple of girls. We were on the phone for an hour. That first call, it was an hour because I was sitting in my garage with the car running. The garage door was up. I wasn't trying to kill myself. My wife kept walking out looking at me like, what are you doing? talking on the phone. And she got the biggest kick out of that. It's like somebody you knew. No, never met him before.
Well, I tell
But
you
Donnie
what,
knew
we're
him.
going to have fun meeting with you at Marty B's in July. Thank you again, Scott, for being on board. Thank you for joining us. Veterans Impact Show, we're here for you.